Hey everybody, this is Wednesday morning. This is October 5th, 2016 at about 9:35, 9:40 in the morning. I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here in Charlotte, North Carolina with your Matthew update. Appreciate all the new followers on the coast. You've been hitting me up with great questions. Please remember, I'm going to lay out some of the things I think is going on with the storm, some official, some unofficial stuff. Make sure you stay tuned to your local officials. Make sure you take all of their information and emergency response promptly and correctly. Even if you're told to evacuate and you think the storm's going to turn around, don't take chances with this storm. While some scenarios are looking better for parts of the coast, some areas it's looking worse. And in this case, this is a powerful hurricane, and even with a close call, you can't take chances. Better be safe than sorry. I always like to lay that out. We're waiting for that morning advisory coming up at 11 a.m., but I'll be honest with you, a lot of the details I already know. We're just waiting for the official track. This is the latest satellite image. The storm took a beating overnight. The weakest this storm has looked in actually a couple days, as it's kind of had to interact with Cuba and the Dominican Republic and Haiti. The mountains did disrupt the flow quite a bit, but what happened overnight is the core of the storm maintained itself. So while this part of the storm got eaten up, and even part of the eastern side, the core of the storm stayed intact. That's the engine. Because that's completely intact, now it's game on. It's moving over really warm water of the Bahamas, which is like a hot tub, and it should easily reform. In fact, here's the visible image. You can see a lot of the convection on the northwest side disappeared, but look at the core of the storm. The eye is still somewhat evident, and we've got a ring of good convection around the center, kind of a donut. That means this storm is going to crank up because the track ahead of it over the next couple of days back into the Bahamas, no shear, no dry air, and very warm water. So it could easily re-strengthen to a Category 4 as it approaches the Florida coast. That's why, folks in Florida, you need to pay really close attention and heed all those warnings. This is not going to miss Florida. But further north, there's been some developments overnight. If you follow me, you may know about these. These are the latest guidance models from this morning. So let's start with the part that's not as crazy and actually very well organized and a good consensus. This is where the storm's going to go. It's going to go through the Bahamas and recurve back towards Florida as we go into Friday. Thursday night into Friday. Now, this is where Florida needs to be very careful because this is a close approach. Some of the models make landfall, but let's be honest, the majority of them are just offshore. Probably doesn't matter because in this point, this is going to be a Category 4 hurricane, and the winds extend out about 60 miles. So if the winds extend out about 60 miles on either side, let's say, I wouldn't gamble if I lived anywhere along this coast. So hurricane warnings are up for good reason. That you need to take serious. Now, further north, getting into South Carolina and North Carolina, look what happened in the last couple of runs. Matthew is deciding to take a hard right turn. All of the guidance just depends on how quickly that turn takes place. Only one singular model has landfall anywhere in the Carolinas. But again, South Carolina, listen to these evacuations because this is going to be a game of chicken, and you don't want to play chicken with a Category 4 or 3 hurricane. It's going to make an approach, and if you're sitting up here in the low country of South Carolina, you're not going to take a gamble and say, oh, it's going to churn, it's going to churn. No, this is like sitting in traffic and hoping that the Mack truck is going to churn or maybe stop. Probably not worth the gamble. I would say probably, definitely not worth the gamble. But this is definitely a trend, and this definitely is better news for North Carolina and especially the Outer Banks because this is going to keep the storm farther away from the Carolina coast. What's going on and why is this not as crazy as it might seem? What's going on is we've got this trough of low pressure digging in across the plains. You can see it here. We've got a ridge of high pressure here. Now, troughs are like magnets. They like to grab and attract to low pressure. So they want to pick this system up. But look at this gap. This is a pretty big distance here between the two. As we go into the future, that trough lifts a little bit. This is too big of a gap. This distance between the trough and the storm is too great. And we've got a big old ridge here with Nicole out here trying to create a little weakness, which is wanting Matthew to kind of tug and go check out Nicole while this is moving away. So what happens is this trough essentially leaves Matthew behind. It bypasses the weakness that Nicole has created, makes Matthew want to kind of go towards low pressure, where the closest low pressure to Matthew in this case is going to be Nicole. So it's going to want to go to the right, and it's going to take a turn. At the same time, another ridge builds back here, which starts pushing down this way and forces Matthew to go maybe southeast, take that little turn to the right. And then it does a loop, possibly. Now, the loop, it could be well offshore, it could be a tiny loop, could be a big circular loop. That's the question. You don't know. And anytime you see loops in model guidance, that's usually indication of the steering patterns breaking down. And that's what I'm kind of showing you. The steering kind of falls apart here. But you can see a big ridge builds across the south. The flow now becomes like this. So Matthew's going to want to do this. This trough is long gone. See you later. No, nothing going on. But here's what happens as we go into next week. Matthew's still hanging out in the northern Bahamas, possibly gaining strength again. Doing a loop-to-loop, maybe making another approach to Florida, maybe going farther south. I doubt it. I don't know what's going to happen there. But another trough is going to come down, and you can see this trough coming down. It's a little bit stronger and a bigger ridge building here, which is still forcing down. So does it get picked up this time and move out to the northeast? Good chance it starts to drift east, and eventually it does get picked up by this mega trough, which tries to develop here by not this Sunday, next Sunday. So that should tell you that this thing could be around for a while. Now here's the thing. You don't know if this loop is going to be out here and it's going to do teeny loops and kind of do one of these. It could do a big broad loop. That's hard to say because now it's just drifting. And when something's drifting like a listless ship, you just don't know what it's going to do. And here's the guidance. These are the GFS runs and all of them. Look at this loop back towards the coast. So, needless to say, we are probably going to be talking about Matthew for quite some time. But here's what I'll leave you with. Florida, full precautions. This is going to be a major hurricane affecting the east coast of Florida. Even if it's barely offshore, still significant impact. South Carolina, too close to call. Do not change all the evacuation plans. North Carolina, we're in a wait-and-see mode. I would still have your precautions and plans in place, but don't act on them yet because the slow movement of this is going to give us a lot of time to kind of watch it. And just to kind of show you how much time we have, this was the 5 a.m. advisory. Again, this is Category 4 storm here. Let me put this on here. This is Friday at 2 o'clock in the morning. Up here it becomes a Category 2. This is Saturday at 2 o'clock in the morning. And here it is offshore by about 150 miles, maybe 200 miles. 2 a.m. Sunday, and then Category 1 out here, 2 a.m. Monday. So even if the storm turns again, this is moving much slower than we have time to make decisions in North Carolina. So again, from South Carolina south, all precautions up here. It's kind of a wait-and-see mode right now. And by the way, there's Nicole out there, which is all a player in this. So I know it's a long video, but there was a lot going on here. I will continue to post updates and keep you up to date. And as soon as that 11 a.m. advisory, I'll post it. But I can guarantee one thing. We're probably going to see this recurvature like this a little bit more pronounced. Here, this part of the model of the track, is not going to change much at all. Hope you have a great Wednesday. Stay tuned. Be safe. If you're evacuating, make sure you do so. Make sure you take precautions. This is just a storm we can't gamble with. It's been 11 years since we've had a major hurricane hit the U.S., and so this is a time to take it seriously. We're well overdue.